Today we have with us Shri Robin Devados. Robin, are you here?
Yes, Dr. Ruchira, I am here.
Yeah. So Robin is here with us today. He will be taking you through the tools for integrating nutrition in village plan. Robin is working as a technical expert with FAO India, that is Food and Agriculture Organization in India. He works in the domain of nutrition sensitive agriculture and food system. He is a development sector professional with 10 years of work experience in this sector across the domains of nutrition, agriculture, and sanitation. So, for this session, I expect that all of you will be paying very close attention because it is a technical session. By now, you have understood the basic concepts of nutrition. You know about the basic institutions that deal with nutrition at village level. So, this session will build upon that knowledge that you have gathered over the past 4 years and will actually take you through a tool that you can use to make an action plan and conduct a situation analysis. So Robin, I will hand it over to you. You may please share your screen and your PowerPoint.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchira. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Robin Devadas. I am working as a technical expert with FAO India under the domain of nutrition sensitive agriculture and food systems. As Dr. Ruchira mentioned, I have a development sector professional. I have 10 years of work experience across sectors like nutrition, agriculture, and sanitation. So let's move on. Yeah, sorry. So we know that Grama Sabha is a major platform to raise and approve of the developmental issues that need funding support in villages. But before convening a Grama Sabha, the key line department in representatives and local institutions have to make preparatory meetings so that relevant points can be put to discussion in the Sabhas. So today we shall teach you a tool which is an extremely strong mechanism to draw out the key problems leading to malnutrition, key solutions, and map the institution, funds, and departments responsible to deliver the solutions at the village. So this is a quick overview of the today's session. So we will have an introduction, why we attend this session, what the participants will be learning throughout the session. And second, why a nutrition... Hello, yes, sorry.
Please go on, Robin. Please
Yes.
go on.
Why a nutrition situation analysis is needed and what are all the steps, like how to understand nutrition problems and trends, what are all the causes to determine the causes of malnutrition, and we on the step 3 we analyze policies, programs, and stakeholders, and at the final step is the building of a malnutrition problem tree solution. So as I mentioned during this session, so the participants will be able to identify all the information required to conduct a nutrition situation analysis. They will know where to get this information and understand how to analyze it to make sense of the situation. And finally, build a problem and solution tree for malnutrition. So why you should attend this session? So the participants will know what data to collect and how to analyze them in order to design nutrition sensitive programs. Understanding nutrition problems and the enabling environment for nutrition will help to better support policy processes for improved nutrition. So why a nutrition situation analysis needed? So there are 5 things we need to keep in mind on the nutrition while doing a nutrition situation analysis. One is the context. It is very crucial to understand the local context and identify the main drivers of malnutrition in the intervention area. Second is the targeting vulnerable. So analysis is need to understand who is malnourished and who is vulnerable to malnutrition, and accordingly we have to adapt our targeting strategy. We also need to understand what interventions to prioritize based on analysis of the context and learning from the past experiences. So it is essential to avoid a duplication of efforts and to identify opportunities to link to other programs that is already there in the intervention area and build partnerships. And finally, it is the local priorities and commitments. We have to ensure that the program aligns with them and supports their achievements. So there are 3 steps of the nutrition situation analysis. First is the understanding the nutrition problems and trends. Second is to determine causes of malnutrition. And third is to analyze policies, programs, and stakeholders. So before we begin, we can refresh our memories about the knowledge on the basic concepts of nutrition. Also, we had 3 previous days, we have dealt more on nutrition and concepts of nutrition. Praveen, can you please share the link to the participants?
Yeah, sure.
Praveen, please post it both in WhatsApp group and also in email ID.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, Robin, let us know when to stop the poll and move on.
Yeah, okay. I think it's just a few 5 questions. I think we can stop the poll now. So I've received 21 responses so far. Maybe in 1 more minute, can we end the poll?
Yeah, Praveen, 1 more minute. You can stop accepting response from your end, Robin.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm ending the poll right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please also discuss the answers as the participants would like to know them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you guys see my screen? Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Oh, okay. So for the question number one, the correct answers the nutrient requirements increase greatly during puberty and adolescence, especially for boys. It is actually true because the nutrient requirements tend to increase based on the metabolism. And the second option, it is not true. It is not true that men have greater iron needs than women. Thirdly, it is sick people have reduced nutrient requirements as they are not active. This is also true to this statement. And women's nutrient requirements remain stable throughout their life is a false statement because it depends during puberty and pregnancy. It may vary as per the life stages. And for the second, it is yes, obesity is one of the forms of malnutrition. And we can see in the coming slides, we can see what is the where we can get data on stunting globally and also for India. And it is as per these data, more than 50 countries have 20 affected by stunting. Children affected by stunting. And obesity is not only a problem in high-income countries. Due to the lifestyle changes, it has become a problem in the developing and the underdeveloped countries as well. So as we see, the following causes of malnutrition: diarrhea, which is depends on the inadequate dietary intake and diseases. So hence it will be an immediate cause of malnutrition. So restrictive land holding policies will come under a basic cause of malnutrition because it is related to political, social, economical, cultural, and environmental factors. Low food consumption score is an underlying cause of malnutrition since it relates to related the household level food and insecurity and inadequate care and feeding practices. So ethnic bias in government resource allocation is also a basic cause of malnutrition. As we see, it is also related to political and socio-economic factors. And finally, poor breastfeeding practices is an underlying cause of malnutrition as stated. So we will move on to the next slides. Yes. So in the step one of the analysis, we see understand nutrition problems and trends. So there are four ways where how you can understand nutrition problems and trends. So first method is the using databases and online resources such as websites, databases and reports. Second is getting local information. And third is the organizing information on nutrition situation trends. So in our country, there are several websites and databases to understand nutrition problems and trends. I will just browse through some of these important ones. So first one is the National Family Health Survey. It provides state and national level information for India on fertility, infant and child mortality, maternal and child health, nutrition, anemia, and several factors. So if you can go to the link, the NFHS 5 is still in progress. We have this NFHS 4 so far. So we go to the publication section and we select the national and state fact sheets. We can select across India or which state, maybe Andhra Pradesh we select, and we get the report of it. It provides details about the state level key indicators in terms of urban, rural, and total population. Similarly, we can also have access to districts. So if we go to Andhra Pradesh or maybe and Chittoor, so we have the district level fact sheet with respect to the key indicators, rural and total. And third is the reports. So you can have the India report, All India report as well. Yeah, it's a 2015-16 report. And also we can select a state. If we are interested in Telangana, for instance, we'll get the report of the Telangana state for the same year. Moving on. So there is also a comprehensive national nutrition survey. It is the first ever national nutrition survey covering over 100 and more than 11 lakh preschoolers, school age children and adolescents in rural and urban areas across 30 states of India. It provides national and state level representative data for nutritional status and micronutrient deficiencies among children and adolescents. So as we can see, if we go to the link, we will be able to see the there is a CNSS report. If you can click on this report, it will take you to the report directly, where you can see the yeah, it gives you the details of the, as mentioned, the nutritional status and micronutrient deficiencies. Also, there are fact sheets. You can go through the fact sheets. It will show depending on the state. So, the Delhi fact sheet, you can get your relative regional state data from this website. So moving on. So there is also a Nutrition India provides data on malnutrition conditions like stunting, wasting. It is a dashboard type where you can easily go through the data. The interface is a good interface where we can see the, as you can see, prevalence of stunting in under 5-year-olds. Likewise, prevalence of severe wasting, under 5 mortality rate. This is all India level. You can also select state. For instance, if you select Tamil Nadu, you will get the respective data. And it is categorized as immediate causes. The data can be utilized like this: immediate causes, underlying causes, and also on the basic cause. So this is the next one is the Global Nutrition Report, country profiles. It is an independent and comprehensive annual review of the state of the world's nutrition. Yeah, the country profiles especially captures the status of progress of all the UN member states, including India, and 80 plus indicators on the child, adolescent, and adult anthropometry and nutritional status. So if we go to this country profiles and select India as a region, we can see the country overview and the data respective to the country. So we can access progress based on the targets. And there is no data available for a particular topic. It shows us no data. Yeah, these are the figures. You can explore these things in your own personal time. Let's move on. So second, first, after going through the online databases and reports, we see how to get local information. Um, so you can identify using the data available online. You can identify several malnutrition problems in the region. It is also important to cross-check and explore whether these problems are specific and in your intervention area. So some of the guiding questions to get for getting local information are below. As you can see, what is the prevalence of different forms of malnutrition? Second, are certain geographical areas more affected by malnutrition than others? Third, are certain livelihood, socioeconomic, age, or gender groups are more affected by malnutrition than others? And are there any trends, seasonal and long term, in rates of malnutrition? And what are the most prevalent diseases? So, getting local information, let us look at some of the key informants at the central, state, regional, and local level. At central level, as mentioned, we have these ministries, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Panchayat Raj institutions, etc. Under the ambit of Poshan Abhiyan, these information can be sought from these ministries. And at the state level, these information on nutrition status can be obtained from Women and Child Development departments, health departments, and state nutrition research center of the respective states. At the regional level, these information can be obtained from DPOs, CDPOs, and primary health centers. Getting local information at the local level. As we see, these information can be obtained from community health centers, self-help groups, gram panchayats, Anganwadi centers, and like that. So also having a focused group discussions with community groups can also provide useful information on local perceptions of malnutrition problems and their consequences. After we collect these informations, we have to organize them in the form of a nutrition a report format so that it will be preserved and can be utilized for taking decisions in the future. So I'm just here mentioning the the broad sections under which the information can be obtained, and can be represented. The prevalence of different forms of malnutrition, under which it will come chronic malnutrition like acute malnutrition, women underweight, micronutrient deficiencies, overweight and obesity, and other health problems. And then comes the malnutrition trends across years and time, and across locations, which will come under geographical areas, and the vulnerable groups. So far we have learned that national data not only only national data cannot provide all the important information we need. In order to, it is also critical to gather local information, and it is also important to understand which population groups are more affected by malnutrition. It is when available, it is always good to disaggregate data based on the socioeconomic group, livelihood group, to have a clearer vision of the situation. Also, beyond looking at the malnutrition rates, it is useful to understand how malnutrition rates have changed over time. For instance, whether obesity rates have increased and in which areas have they increased. Looking at data at different times of the year helps to understand whether there are regular or predictable seasonal variations in malnutrition prevalence. So next we go on to the step 2, which is determining the causes of malnutrition. So now we have identified the main malnutrition problems, affected areas and population groups. Now the next step is to determine the major underlying factors. So what information is needed? This diagram shows the all types of information that you need to collect and analyze in order to develop a good understanding of the causes of malnutrition. For instance, the diet and health status represent the immediate determinants of nutrition, and they operate at the individual level. At the same time, the boxes here, the household food access, care and feeding practices, and healthy environment are the underlying determinants of nutrition and which operate at the household level. The circle ones are the main factors related to food and agriculture which influence these underlying nutrients. So during the step 1 of the analysis, we saw how to collect information on people's nutritional status as well as some data on diseases. With respect to diet, we need to more about what people eat in order to assess the quality of diets and to identify main dietary gaps for vulnerable groups. Also, care and feeding practices. We need to assess the appropriateness of care and feeding practices in terms of food intake, health status, and well-being. In addition to diet and care and feeding practices, we need to look at some other major determinants such as access to water and sanitation, household environment, nutrition and health related knowledge, attitudes, practices and perceptions, and gender issues in the community. So these are some of the guiding questions which will be helpful for you to get information at the village level in terms of diet and care and feeding practices and the factors that are mentioned. I'm just allowing few time to for participants to go through the questions, as I need not repeat the same. So how do we see? These are the food groups classification. In terms of diet, how do we measure individual dietary diversity or household dietary diversity? So there are 16 food groups. It is classified as 16 groups, the food groups. And as you can see, they are cereals, which is rice, wheat, sorghum, millet, and other grains, white roots and tubers, vitamin A rich vegetables and tubers, dark green leafy vegetable, other vegetables, vitamin A rich fruits. These are the food groups, and these are the examples under the food groups. So then this is the remaining of the food groups: other fruits, organ meat, flesh meats, eggs, fish and seafood, legumes, nuts and seeds, milk and milk products, oils and fats, sweets, spices, condiments and beverages. So there are these indicators to assess the nutritional status. For instance, indicator minimum dietary diversity for women of reproductive age. It measures the dietary quality and reflects nutrient adequacy and dietary diversity. The target population is the women of reproductive age 15 to 49. It looks at the foods and beverages consumed in the previous 24 hours, which are aggregated into 10 distinct food groups. It does not require quantitative food intake. A qualitative sum would be enough. Likewise, there are other indicators: minimum dietary diversity for young children, minimum acceptable diet, which is the population children from 6 to 23 months. Likewise. So there are other indicators like individual dietary diversity score, which measures the individual's dietary diversity, and unique food item dietary variety, proportion of the diet consisting in processed, ultra processed foods, which is again the individual level, consumption of vitamin A rich food, iron rich food, specific target foods. So here we can see an example how to measure the individual dietary diversity score. So these are the food groups we have mentioned. There are 16 food groups available, and an individual has taken, as we measured for the previous 24 hours, an individual consumption of food. So there is breakfast. We divide it as breakfast, lunch, evening, and dinner. So if an individual takes bread in the breakfast, we under the sweet section where the bread comes in, we put it as, we give him a value of 1. If not, it remains 0 or null. And for lunch, he has taken rice, dal, and vegetable condiments, leafy vegetables. So we score them as 1, cereals 1, and dal also comes under cereals. We give them 1, value 1. And
Robin, I think dal will come under legumes, nuts, and seeds, number 12.
yes, yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you for that, Dr. Chila. So vegetable oil condiments like 1, we value accordingly based on the food groups. And evening, if he has taken a tea or coffee, then we put it under milk products. And water. So biscuit, if it is a wheat sugar, then we put it under beverages. And for again, dal is will come under here. We provide value as 1.
I will quickly pitch in, Robin.
Yes, please.
This is for the participants. You see, this is a very easy way to construct the situation of diet in your village. So it's a very easy indicator to make. If you have this list and you have the items that the individual has taken over last 24 hours, within the items also you can break it down by the individual items that has gone into preparing the dish. So if the person has taken, for example, spinach, palak ki sabzi or spinach curry in lunch, then leafy vegetable will be 1, and in the spinach some condiments may have gone on, so condiments will also become 1, and oil may have gone on, so oil will become 1. So that way, by looking at what exact items the person has taken over last 24 hours, you can give them a score in each of these 16 items. And then, Robin, can you just sum it up and see what the person gets overall?
Yeah, so if we sum it up all the values, so for that, for the individual one, we get a number of consumed food groups, which becomes the IDDS score, which is 13. So, and that is the, this for one person. So if you carry out for a number of respondents, the scores may vary, and these are the sample ones I've just mentioned here, 15, 9, 12. So the indicator's value can be calculated by summing up all the IDD scores of all the respondents and dividing. So if you add all of them, the sum of IDD scores will be 49. For instance, if the number of respondents are 20, or in this case, how many we have? We have 4. So it is 4. So the indicator value is 12. So the potential score range for individual dietary score is 12. It is range is from 0 to 12. So in this case, we have got 12. So this is how we calculate the individual dietary diversity. Likewise, the scores can be calculated for other indicators as well. So moving on. So after we get all the data, So the report section will have these as the main headings, under which we can fill in the data obtained. We look into the food consumption patterns and dietary needs as one section. Then we mention the feeding and carrying practices and gender issues. Then nutrition knowledge, attitude and practices in the community, healthy environment and natural resource management. So for the rest of the information such as food access and incomes, food production and food environments in the market, these informations can be obtained from the information sources that we have mentioned already in the previous section. So these are the overall guiding questions which will be part of your obtaining the information. So for instance, to have the nutritional status information, the guiding question would be, what are all the nutrition problems and trends in the program area? What are the most vulnerable groups and where do they live? For instance, for diet, we ask what do people eat in the program area? Do local diets allow nutritionally vulnerable people and groups to meet their heightened dietary needs? Likewise, for each of the section, there are these guiding questions which you can go through later. So then after we determine the causes of malnutrition, our third step is the analysis is to analyze the policies, programs and stakeholders. The situation analysis will not be complete if we don't understand the policy context and its implications on the overall situation. So we need to get a global overview of the institutional policy and program context, and also at the national and at the local levels. Similarly, we need to understand the nutrition political context, look at the programs and investments in the existing intervention area, identify the stakeholders and the way they coordinate on nutrition. So three key questions which we need to keep in mind during this analysis is what is the level of commitment to nutrition in the country? What are the main guiding policies related to nutrition in your region? And are there any major nutrition issues which are not addressed by current policies? So these are some of the global online resources which I will just give a demo which will help you understand in little detail. So this Global World Health Assembly Target Tracking Population is a tracking tool that helps countries to set their national targets and monitor progress against the 6 global nutrition targets for improving maternal, infant and young children nutrition to be achieved by 2025. So if we go to the link and go below and open the tracking tool. So we select the language as English. So you can select the country indicator profiles. You can select which country. See, you can select the country here. All the countries in the world are listed. You can select India and it gives you the select India and select view report. We get the data here. Country progress report 2019 India. We get data on stunting, anemia, low birth weight, exclusive breastfeeding, and other indicator definitions also given. And the source of data also is given at the end. Similarly, we can directly go to, if you want stunting across the world or across India, we can select particular links, which is mentioned here. You can directly go to those data. So I click stunting on the previous page. So it took me to the stunting profile of Albania. We can change it to India. So automatically this data will be refreshed and will be given the data related to India. So let's move on. So next is the Hunger and Nutrition Commitment Index. It is created to provide greater transparency for public accountability by measuring what governments achieve and where they fail in addressing hunger and undernutrition. You can select the answer global and it will take you to the countries. If you select India, it provides key data for India, hunger reduction, public spending policies. The policies access to land security is strong in India. Also access to agricultural research and extension services. In terms of policies, it is a strong environment. And the laws are moderate in terms of level of constitutional protection of the right to food. Constitutional right to social security is a strong scope. Likewise, we can get the relevant data from as per needs. So these are the strong performance areas and areas for improvement at the country level in nutrition. So the scaling up nutrition, it is a progress report and country profiles. It provides a detailed snapshot of the progress and results towards scaling up nutrition in SUN countries and also on the broad evaluation of the movement. So this website also has country profiles with country statistics on the nutrition situation, relevant interventions and other nutrition sensitive indicators. Let's move on. So these are the policy domains that needs to be kept in mind that are related to agriculture and food systems that can influence nutrition. We know there are several policies in India, which these policies will come under the umbrella of these broad sections of policies. For instance, with food production quantity and quality, these are the broad policy domains where we can relate our policy that are existing. For instance, biofortification policies, policy for cooperatives and other farmer-based organizations. Like we have farmer-producer organization policies likewise. We also have food labeling policy. Participants can just browse through, see the under which policies. For instance, under consumer demand food preparation and preferences, under school food and nutrition policy, the midday meal programs and such policies can be fit in. This provides an overview of what are the policies that can be covered. Let's move on. Yeah. Ruchira, Dr. Ruchira, want to take over?
Let's just leave this slide for some time for people to read.
Okay.
Yeah, Robin, is it full screen mode? Are you sharing in full screen mode? Because I can see some headers above your slide.
Yeah, it is 1 second. I'm not sure how to go back. It is. You can see the screen, right? The complete presentation.
I can see it, but it seems it's not on a full screen mode. It's very small.
Just a second, let me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's full screen.
Okay.
You can move forward, Robin.
Yeah, I think this is the end of the first session on nutrition situation analysis. We will see an action plan after some short break, Dr. Chira. That's fine.
We can take a 5-minute break and reassemble.
Okay.
Yeah. Robin, can you unmute yourself, please?
Oh, sorry.
There is some kind of noise in your background.
Okay, let me check one second.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
We can still hear some sound.
I don't know what is it. Yes. Can we proceed?
Yeah, but is your window open? Because we can barely hear you. It's very noisy in the background.
Okay. Now is it fine?
You are audible, but the background noise is still there.
What kind of noise? Because I've switched off my fan also.
Yeah. Okay, please proceed.
Yeah. So after the analysis, we go on to build the malnutrition problem tree and solution tree. So in order to run a successful planning workshop, we need to collect the views of professionals from a wide range of sectors and organizations. This will allow for a comprehensive assessment and analysis of the local nutrition situation.
I'll shortly pitch in here, Robin.
Yes.
For the benefit of the participants, I hope my voice is clear because many of them are complaining that they can't hear it. So the workshop that we are talking about is a preparatory workshop before your Gram Sabha, right? So we know that there are multiple problems that the Gram Sabha will discuss, but this is just a way to pinpoint the ones that are relevant to your village or your GP, so that it is a guided discussion in the Gram Sabha. So in a preparatory workshop or a preparatory meeting, ये आपके गांव का जो प्लानिंग फैसिलिटेशन टीम है, GPPFT है, वो कर सकता है, या फिर आपके गांव के कोई लाइन डिपार्टमेंट में जो लोग हैं या SHG की मीटिंग में ये हो सकता है. बेसिकली यू हैव टू ब्रिंग इन पीपल फ्रॉम डिफरेंट रिलेवेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस टुगेदर. So the Panchayati Raj institution representative has to be there. The agriculture extension officer has to be there. The person who is in GPPFT committee, he or she has to be there. The local school teacher, the Anganwadi teacher has to be there, and the midday meal cook can be there. So all the people who are connected to different institutions should be brought in before a preparatory workshop. So in this workshop, you will do some use these tools to pinpoint the specific problems that you can take to Gram Sabha for further discussion. So I'll give it over to you, Robin, for taking it up.
Thank you. So as mentioned by Dr. Ruchira, so this preparatory workshop, we should have invite professionals with strong field experience, such as monitoring staff, extension workers, and community mobilizers to tap into local expertise. Also, the workshop size can be ideal from between 20 to 30, and it should have a fair representation of different types of organizations, institutions, and a gender balanced group of participants. So as we see in this slide, it is also, even though we plan to organize a workshop to design the joint strategy, it is recommended that we use the malnutrition problem and solution tree methodology for facilitating this planning process. So preparing for the workshop. So in the link provided, Ms. Praveen will send you across the links. There are several tasks a facilitator might consider doing when preparing for a workshop using the malnutrition problem and solution trees. Praveen, can you share the links to them so that they can see the tasks?
Yeah, sure.
So how long should we keep this link open, Robin?
Uh, 3 to 5 minutes, that is maximum.
So it's 3:29 now. So
Yeah,
at 3:34 we close it.
yes.
Okay. So we have shared the poll again in your WhatsApp. Even if you can't hear the sound, you can see the poll in WhatsApp. So please click on the poll and answer the questions. It will be shown in the next slide, the answers, but the poll will be open only for a window period of 4 more minutes, which is at 15:34 we'll close the poll. So after that, even if you click on the link, the poll will not open. So within this window, please open it and answer the questions.
I hope participants can see the same as mine.
Maybe you can zoom it in a little bit. It's a bit small.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can see there are 53 responses right now.
We have 2 more minutes and then we'll close it.
Yes. Should we stop accepting?
1 more minute.
Okay. I think we can end the poll.
Yeah, you can stop accepting and show the results too.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see? Okay. So the ticked marked ones are the right answers. Selecting the venue. So the choice of venue should be discussed with local officials and perceived as a neutral for the participants. Also, it is also should include space for group discussions, so it will facilitate. And recruiting survey enumerators, it will be an inappropriate task because enumerators are needed only for data collection. But in this preparatory workshop, we are using secondary data and people's expertise. So, and selecting the workshop participants. The workshop participants, selection of workshop participants should be inclusive. Also, collecting secondary data on the nutrition situation is the right task. As we discussed earlier in the nutrition situation analysis at the beginning of the workshop, in order to present it will present the main data about the nutrition situation in the community and communicating regarding the event. So clear messages can contribute to strengthening local commitment for the workshop's conclusion and to building interest in nutrition among the local population. Organizing a pre-workshop training for all participants will be an inappropriate task as this is not necessary and it may discourage people from participating in the actual workshop. And with respect to mobilize and train facilitators, in addition to the lead facilitator for the workshop, 3 to 4 group facilitators can be identified and there can be in a position to remain neutral during discussions. Drafting the workshop report is an inappropriate task as the report comes after the workshop and not before the workshop. So inform and inviting participants. So it has to informing participants in order to take necessary approval before attending the workshop is necessary, which is also we need to provide support to participants in attending the workshops. And finally, establishing a workshop steering committee is an appropriate task as the committee would be comprised of representatives from different institutions, for example, funding agencies, government departments, NGOs, etc., and they'll be in charge of the overall implementation of the workshop. Moreover, the steering committee should ensure ownership from the participants and that the workshop effectively responds to their expectations. Yeah. So the objective of the preparatory workshop is to design a joint multi-sectoral strategy to improve food and nutrition security and strengthen resilience in the intervention areas. So preparing for the workshop in this, identifying the most vulnerable livelihood groups. In order to initiate a discussion to identify the livelihood groups in the area that are most vulnerable to food insecurity and malnutrition, based on your participants' knowledge of the region. The below questions will help you identify the most vulnerable livelihood groups in the region. 1. Which population groups are most affected by malnutrition? What are the characteristics of the main livelihood groups? What are family and child feeding practices in the area? Are there differences between livelihood groups in the family and child feeding practices? What are the main malnutrition problems in your area? So let's see what is a problem tree. A problem tree is a tool to systematically analyze the cause and effect relationships of problems in relation to your core problem. As the name suggests, a problem tree is represented visually by a tree which includes several fundamental components. Let's have a closer look in the coming slides. In this case, we are taking as malnutrition as a core problem. We see the malnutrition problem tree. So three things that needs to be kept in mind while creating a malnutrition problem tree. Making malnutrition as the core problem, focus on the causes of malnutrition, and build the problem tree for one specific livelihood group. So beginning the problem tree session by begin the problem tree session by distributing blank cards like the sticky notes to all of the participants. You are to instruct each of them of the participants to write on these cards what they think are the main causes of malnutrition for the identified livelihood group. To identify the problem cards, you have to avoid certain things like duplication of same messages being written by the participants, and the message has to be very specific, and it has to be clear, and the wordiness has to be maintained so that it doesn't require longer sentences. So keeping these things in mind, let us see another poll which will take you to identifying the problematic cards during the malnutrition problem tree creation. Praveen, can you share the link to the participants? Praveen?
Hello.
Yeah, Praveen, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Can you please share the link?
Okay. Shared in WhatsApp and I'll check it.
Shall we close it at 15:46?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Praveen, also share the link in MS Team chat box.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
So here there are 6 options given. Select 3 options that you think are problematic cards that needs to be rewritten or removed for the main causes of malnutrition.
Maybe when you give the examples, Robin, you can explain a little bit more what you mean by duplicity and all the
Okay.
4 things. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we can move on now, Robin.
Yes,
Stop.
okay. Yeah. So as we see the identifying the problematic cards. So there are options like few opportunities for stable employment and also limited and irregular wage labor. These two cards contain the same information. So you can remove one of them, either one of them will do. And next one is the food insecurity. The problem stated in this card is not specific enough, right? So the word food insecurity can encompass many different problems. But other problems like reduced number of meals is a malnutrition problem, and low and regular income and high food prices are the causes of malnutrition. Yeah. So there are other problems with respect to food security and livelihoods, care and health practices, water and health environment, which are undermines the determinants of malnutrition. For instance, this is the final list of all the problems a malnutrition problem tree will have with respect to food security and livelihoods, care and health practices, water and health environment. For instance, under food security and livelihoods, so no household food production, few opportunities for stable employment, high food prices, low and irregular income, high dependency on markets for food, reduced number of meals, low purchasing power, high consumption of cheap and unhealthy street foods. These are the immediate causes that can come for the malnutrition. And with respect to the underlying causes, which are care and health practices, these are the problems that can be identified. Limited income to buy safe water and hygiene items, limited knowledge of nutrition, poor hygiene practices, poor infant feeding practices, inappropriate health-seeking behavior. With respect to the basic causes of malnutrition, there are these high risk of food and water contamination. Use of open areas for defecation is a problem. Poor access to health services, poor access to water and sanitation facilities, and limited access to safe water. So these are all interrelated. There are a correlation exists between each of these problems. As we can see, a few opportunities for stable employment will lead to low and irregular income, which will lead to low purchasing power, and which will lead to reduced number of meals and high consumption of cheap and poor nutritious foods, which leads to the inadequate food intake, and that finally leads to malnutrition. So the green ones are the immediate causes, and the orange boxes are the underlying causes, and the pink one are the basic causes. If you see, the poor access to water and sanitation facilities will lead to the use of open areas for defecation and also limited access to safe water, which in case it will lead to diseases and which will lead to malnutrition. And if you can see, limited knowledge of nutrition will lead to high consumption of cheap and poorly nutritious foods, which will lead to inadequate food intake and malnutrition. Likewise, we can all these problems that are identified are interrelated and have their effects on each other. So far, a malnutrition problem in problem tree in action, we have seen that it is a very powerful tool to better understand the complexity and the interrelations between causes of malnutrition in a given context and for a specific livelihood group. It also helps to build consensus among participants about the causes of malnutrition and strengthens ownership of nutrition issues. This malnutrition problem tree and solution tree has been used in various contexts across the world, and it has been very appreciated by professionals from diverse backgrounds. It also can be used to design an integrated food security and nutrition information system, highlighting problems for which indicators should be collected. So let us see a solution, how we can translate a problem into a solution. For instance, fewer opportunities for stable employment. So there are these three options, which can be a complement for turning a negative problem into a positive solution. So increased opportunities for stable employment, creation of stable jobs is an opposite of few opportunities for stable employment, as we can see in the next slide. As we see, these two are the good positive translation for the problem stated above. Regular income is not, because the problem identified here is stable employment. Stable employment and regular income are different things. So as we identify the problems, based on the problems identified, this is how a solution tree will look like for a specific livelihood group. So, for instance, if there is no household food production, increased household food production is a solution. And for a few opportunities for a high stable employment and high food prices, uh, affordable food prices is solution for high food prices, and reduced dependency on markets will be a solution for high dependency on markets for food. Also, high consumption of less reduced number of meals is a solution for adequate number of meals, and improved consumption of nutritious foods is a solution for high consumption of cheap and unhealthy street foods. As we see, if you see increased outdoor food production leads to reduced dependency on markets, which leads to improved purchasing power, which in case leads to improved consumption of nutritious foods and adequate number of meals. Also, let's see, for instance, as we mentioned earlier, increased opportunities for stable employment will lead to regular sources of income, which will lead to improved purchasing power, and it causes adequate food intake, which leads to good nutrition. So this is
Robin,
yes.
can you please speak a little louder? Some of the participants are not able to listen to your voice clearly.
Okay, yeah. So also we see the improved access to water and sanitation facilities will lead to access to safe water, reduced use of open areas for defecation, reduced risk of food and water contamination, which leads to good health and good nutrition. Likewise, if you see the improved knowledge of nutrition lead to improved consumption of nutritious foods, which will lead to appropriate infant feeding practices, and also adequate food intake and good health, which will ultimately lead to good nutrition. Likewise, for each problem, a solution tree also can be made to attain the malnutrition, to address the malnutrition problem. So since we are in online due to COVID-19, we are doing this workshop in the online mode. Otherwise, in the real scenario of the training program, this is how a problem tree will look like, and the respective solution tree also. This is how it will be in the real scenario example. Yeah.
I think the problem and the solutions will also vary by every GP and every region, right? Because it comes from the local committee and their understanding of the problem, and it's not just a single.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Richard, can you take over this intervention sections?
Sure. I think the main purpose of this whole thing is to show you that behind the whole planning process, Robin, you need to mute yourself, otherwise there are some noises.
Sure. Wonderful.
Yeah. So what the solution tree basically tries to show you is that Robin, your slide is not visible. Yeah. So what the solution tree is basically trying to show you is that there are easy tools. Other than one way is, of course, you go through data, you collect data, and you know about your village, and then you go into your planning process. But there are participatory appraisal tools like this which can be used. Your GPPFT can convene a meeting, or in the next SHG meeting, or any kind of shorter meetings that you have, you can just quickly collect all the stakeholders of the program and identify the key areas that are creating malnutrition in your village or in your community. So the easiest way to break it down is that you find out the most vulnerable group in your village. Suppose it is the people who go in the bricklane to work, or suppose it is the landless agricultural laborers, or maybe you see that most of the malnutrition is being found in people who work in a particular factory somewhere or in the construction industry. So you identify a specific group of people who can be easily targeted and where the malnutrition is concentrated. So for them, now you identify the possible reasons and you identify the possible solutions. And once the reasons, that is the problem, is chalked out, and then just giving the problem, the solution is chalked out, connected to each solution, then you have to find out where to get the money from, or which institution will be responsible to solve that problem. So every problem is linked with some line department or some local institution, and those local institutions or those line departments will get money from a different specific fund source. So for that, after the problem tree and then the solution tree is made, all those cards are sorted, then you start mapping out that corresponding to each of those cards, who is the person to whom you can reach out for help, or who is the person who will be able to be responsible for this problem and provide the money. So a very broad example has been given. So this is a global example, that's why it's not specific to India, it's FAO's own example. But in a Gram Panchayat level also, you will find very similar problems, and you can find the exact institutions that work. So what you see here, the bordered colored cards are the solutions corresponding to the problems they had identified. So they identified that increased household food production can be a solution to the food problem. So with that, the solutions or the exact policy solutions they are identifying are distribution of kits for urban agriculture and animal production. For example, home gardening in sacks or bags, or small poultry farming. So who can be the person who can do this distribution of kits? So in India, we know that Jivika, for example, provides MKSP kits to women. So can they be roped in to solve this problem of increased food production or a better dietary diversity provision? Then the next one is increased opportunities for stable employment. So for that, is there a way to go for vocational training so that people who have some education can get a stable employment? So who can be roped in for that? Is DDU GKY active in your area? So can you get enrolled there and access vocational training? The next one is affordable food prices. So for that, exactly at the Gram Panchayat level, you cannot do much because food prices are beyond your help. But then can farm subsidies be provided to farmers for them to make more profit? Regular sources of income. So yeah, for regular sources of income, social safety nets are required. Self-help groups are required. So the local self-help group can be roped in for or the NRLM can be roped in to provide regular source of income. Moving on to the next level of solutions that they identified in the underlying factors. So improved knowledge of nutrition. So they have found out that nutrition education sessions can solve improved knowledge of nutrition. So with that, then you identify who can provide these sessions. Are the local Anganwadis frontline workers going to provide the session? Or is it the women support group who will provide the session? Or is there an NGO which is working in your area whom you can call and provide the sessions? Then there are similarly improved hygiene practices. So is your village an ODF village? Is there ODF for toilets? Is your Jivika giving funds? And what are the other, through a NREGA, can you build sanitation facilities? Or can the hygiene sessions be given through SHGs? So with the improved hygiene practices, then you identify what are the kind of programs and policies that can lead to improved hygiene practices, and then the funding source from which it will come. Then similarly, access to safe water. We know that by now that safe water is Panchayati Raj institution, the PRI's responsibility. The SHG does not have anything to do with it, or the Anganwadi does not have anything to do with it. So can the PRI be roped in, and what can be the funding source from which this safe water can be ensured? So which PHE they will collaborate and provide safe water. So you see, with every solution that now they have identified, you can easily identify the responsible institution for that solution, the responsible person for that solution, and the funding source from which that person or that institution can draw fund from. So easily you can chalk out a very effective plan to work towards malnutrition, and then you can note it down and take it to Gram Sabha for vetting and approval of the people and take their inputs as well. So basically what it does is kind of desegregate or deconstruct the problem of malnutrition. So you know that there are underweight children in your village, or these underweight children are specifically seen in the children of landless laborers. But then how do you deconstruct the problem? Just by providing feed in the Anganwadi, it's not getting solved. It's a generational problem, so it's just continuing. So how do you solve this specific problem? So you kind of call this meeting and meet with these key stakeholders and deconstruct it into the smaller problems that you can target through different institutions and funding sources and solve at the root, so that the undernutrition problem does not arise at all. So this is where I'll stop and I'll give it to Robin so that he can take it forward. Robin, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ruchira. That is a well explanation. Yes, that is all. As she mentioned, these are the relevant interventions we can look into while planning the malnutrition, addressing the malnutrition problems. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you so much for giving your time and participating in this session.